Dehi Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Vadarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krito Vande Bhagavantau Punaha Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagini Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Shanti 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 Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Tachat. So yesterday in the previous time when we met, we mentioned that Madhye Avara Prasavaha Sa, in the beginning and the end, a person attains high intensity in meditation. There are certain times there is a risk of some sort of a distraction in the middle, in the sense he may feel satisfied or contented with that Turyavastha instead of trying to go to the Turyatita Avastha, which is the ultimate stage. And then he will be stuck there, which will kind of work as a limitation, not as a condition for it's a minimum condition for some sort of a feeling of well-being, but you would not go higher further beyond that point. You have a kind of complacency building up in you. And then if a person, however, restarts the sadhana and again focuses his attention in the highest peak that he wants to achieve, then in the verse, the Sutra 25th, 24th mention, Matrasu Swapratya Sandhane. So when a person again re-investigates, contemplates again, Swapratya Sandhane, Atma Pratya Sandhane, Nastasya Punaruthanam, the particular experience of beatitude or that blissful self meditation, meditation on the essential nature of oneself, when he restarts, reconnects with the pure absolute divine, then again he has that blissful experience. It's sometimes like a great sportsman who, because of some sort of stalemate in his career, in the middle of his career, he experiences some loss of form. He doesn't know how to move forward. And then he again refocuses his attention and he regains his touch, something like that. And we have already discussed that in detail, so I'll not revisit it. It's there in the YouTube, you can always look at it. Now, the person who, again, there was a risk which was discussed, and what was the solution to the risk that was discussed. And now he's mentioning what happens to the guy who re-establishes that blissful state in himself through his sadhana. He's giving the answer. What happens to him? Shiva Tulya Jayate. Remember that you have Atma Vyapti, the state of Unumana, and then Shiva Vyapti, the state of Samana, which is the ultimate stage. That we have already discussed. That you have very intense self-meditation, and yet until and unless this self-meditation is realized as non-different from the absolute universal divine reality, we still have some sort of a semblance of individuality. That semblance of individuality becomes a conditioning factor for our not ascending to the ultimate stage. As in Vedanta, they use this word called Agyana Lesha. Even a guy who is Jivana Mukta, he realizes Brahma, but because of Prarabdha, there is some kind of a remaining, a little impression of past ignorance sticks to his consciousness. And that manifests as gaps, or some kind of a discrepancy between what he has realized and what he experiences. You have realized the truth, but in your experiences, there are some dualities appearing here and there. These things are experienced, at least outwardly, in the lives of great siddhas and atmajnas, self-realized souls, for outsiders. Shankaracharya solves it by saying that for sukha, dukha, other things that you see in the life of a jivana mukta, it's because of your ignorance. Not because of his ignorance, because he's liberated. Even though you have that theoretical solution, he's saying that he becomes Shiva Tulya. That means he becomes comparable to Shiva, which is very obvious that he is not Paramashiva at that level, because there is some semblance. And then ultimately he drops this body, he becomes Paramashiva. Now let's look at the Shiva Tulya Jayate. He becomes like Shiva. Turya Parishilyana Prakarshat. Bhattakalata first commentary, the Vritti. Turya Parishilyana Prakarshat, because he perfects it. That fourth stage. The fourth stage, Turya Avastha, he reaches and he perfects it. Prapta Turyatita Padaha. And then he reaches the Turyatita, fifth stage, that ultimate stage he reaches. Of course, I have told you already, we have discussed, they talk about 7 stages. The ultimate being the 7th state, but here Turyatita is generally understood as the ultimate stage. And he is now defining what that 5th stage of perfection is like. And he's explaining Swacha, Swachanda, Chidananda Ghanena. Swacha is fairly transparent. Now there is no mala. Karma mala, Maya mala, all that he has already overcome. Okay, Anava mala, all that there is no imperfection, there is no dirt or filth in the consciousness. That means there is no insufficiency, there is no deficit in his consciousness. Swacha is perfectly transparent, and Swachanda, he has already got his sovereignty. Swachanda means he is not limited by any factor, anything external or internal. Swacha, Swachanda, Chidananda Ghanena. That is that Shiva Swarupa. Chidananda Ghanena, that blissful existence, Shivena. Chidananda Ghana is Shiva. Shiva is not a deity or anything. Here it is that unlimited, infinite, self-luminous bundle of energy. That luminosity, which is Shiva, Shivena, by that, Bhagavata. And he is Parameshwara, Bhagavata, Tulyaha, Deha Kalayaha, Agananad Samo Jayate. Now there is this word called Deha Kalayaha. Deha Kala. They talk about Pancha Kalas in Trikadarshana. And all these kalas are kind of factors which elevate us to the higher level of consciousness. Okay, there is something called the Pancha Kalas are Nibriti Kala, then Pratishtha Kala. Nibriti Kala will give you some Vairagya, Pratishtha Kala will give you some Dharma Bhava, all the time you're ethical. Then there is, you have Santi, then finally you have Santyatita. Okay, so you have Nibriti and then you have Pratishtha, right? And there is another one in between, which I'm forgetting. So you have Santi and Santyatita, and each one is sort of connected with one of these Panchatatvas. Ultimately, you go to the highest level through these Panchakalas. Deha Kala here is that, this body mind frame that you have, it is associated with this particular drive or energy in us which elevates us to reconnect with this particular Shiva Bhava, which is our Swarupa. So he's saying, Deha Kalayaha Agaranat. You have this physical body still there. Because this physical body is still there will be some sort of invisible duality or some sort of a very faint deficit vis-a-vis Paramashiva. Because you still have a human body. Shiva doesn't have any body. He's beyond all frames, all names and forms, but we have name and form. Because of that, so far in your body, you are Shiva Tulya. And then he's saying, Jayate tad vigalanena, that deha kala vigalanena, when this melts and falls dead, then you have videha mukti. Also, saksha siva eva ityarthaha. So there is, then you have to accept one thing. I have also checked with a couple of other commentators. Their argument is that when Jivanamukta word is used in Vedanta, they say Brahmavid Brahmaiva Bhavati. That is the ultimate perfect stage they mention about that. You will reach there. Brahmavid Brahmaiva Bhavati. The one who knows Brahman is verily Brahman. Why so? Because Brahma Jnana is different from Vishaya Jnana, knowing physics, chemistry. This is Vishaya Jnana. There is a knower and there is known. There is some duality. But when you know Brahman, you become Brahman. Why? Because there is no Jnana and Jnata. There is no duality. So it is Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma. So you yourself become the universal. Right? However, they would say that, and there will be end of Vritti Jnana. First, you will meditate on Brahman. The Vritti Jnana itself gets terminated. Like the wood, right? The wood creates fire. That is the consequence. The karana is wood, and the karya, fire, destroys the karana. The effect destroys the cause. In fire, the fire destroys the particular wood. With the piece of wood, you are getting fire. That is the effect, and this effect destroys the cause. It's like the child killing the mother when it's being born. Similarly, this vritti, this brahmakara vritti, you do so much using your mind, using your logic, you do so much of vichara, the mind falls dead and there is only pure consciousness. Ultimately, we use the mind to drop the mind. As all the Jain masters, even all modern day Vedantists tell you, that the idea is to use the mind to drop the mind because mind is the source of all disturbances. But we go beyond the mind to enshrine ourselves, establish ourselves where? In pure consciousness. Now there shall be no duality. Only if there is a mind, there is duality. There be mind, there is an object with which you want to connect. All these kind of becomes insignificant. There is only pure awareness. That is Vedanta. But here, as you say, the Trikadarshana Kashmiri Saivism says that you should not get disheartened. So you will always have that Shivoham, Shivoham, and again we have already discussed that how whatever the person who is already having Bhairavapati, whatever he wants happens. Why? Because he doesn't see himself anymore as different from Paramashiva. He's a perfect, but here, Upasana, that element of Upasana is powerfully present here. Even there is Jnanottara Bhakti. Having everything, he's all the time orienting himself because he recognizes that I have this body-mind complex. This frame is still with me, and I'm looking at the ultimate consciousness, which I am. But then this frame exists. So far, this frame is there. The Jivan Mukta, perfect liberation is not possible. So that karma mala, some mild, will still be there. You can remove imperfections in your thoughts, in your contemplative practices, your understanding. You can remove impurities. But because of prarabdha, there will be some karma mala somewhere, which would become like delta tends to zero. But delta is delta nevertheless. Delta tends to zero. The difference between Shiva and Jiva is delta, and that tends to be zero. Even then, it has some value. It's a variable, it has some value, because of which the difference is not zero. The limits tends to zero. That's what you are saying. So here, in that stage, he is comparable to Shiva. One day this body will fall. What happens to his consciousness? Now it's dissolved in pure Shiva, Shiva Tattva. So what is the implication for the sadhaka? What is the implication for the student of Shaiva Darshana? He doesn't at all arrogantly presume that because you are reading all these, you become Paramashiva. Like Brahma with Brahmaiva Bhavati, one Advaita Vedanta would say, what is sansara? Everything, I am Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi, he will say. This guy will also say Shivoham. But he would be always meditative, contemplative on the Paramashiva Tattva, even though he has nothing to do. We'll go to the next sutra, which will tell us that for him, Upasana means being in this body. Because his consciousness is completely transformed. It is all the time established in Paramashiva Tattva. It's like Thakur, who is completely intoxicated, God intoxicated. So he has no individual likes and dislikes, individual compassion, and you might guess he is still an individual because you see the physical being. But he's not a physical being. He's in that essential nature, that Shiva consciousness. But that consciousness, whatever mild limitations or differences that are visible or invisible between the Jiva Tattva and the Shiva Tattva, they all get eliminated once the person drops this physical frame. he becomes perfect Shiva. There is no difference between Shiva Tulya. The moment you say Shiva Tulya, like Shiva, means there is some difference. That minute difference, that delta, is terminated when this body gets terminated. That is what it's saying, Shiva Tulya Jayate. Let's look at the commentary now. Now, first we would look at we'll first look at the last one, is Srimad Acharya Krishnananda Sagara, because he also sort of includes the commentary of Siva Sutra Vimarshani of Kshemaraja, and sometimes he takes some ideas from Varadaraja, so we'll go to him directly. Itham. So before that, what was the sadhana we were told? He's saying wherever your mind goes, let it go. Don't try to control the mind. The Buddhists have a beautiful idea of meditation, especially the Zen masters or the Vipassana meditation counselors, the mentors, the masters. They tell you this, that you should be like one of these houses in the West, especially in US and other places, Canada. It is scantily populated, the peripheries of the cities. Every house will have their sensor lights around that building in the bungalow. So they would have these sensor lights, and if you go close to it, the lights will be put on just on their own mechanically. It's automated. They're sensors. They see anything moving, the lights go on. So you'll become visible. CCTV cameras will immediately capture your picture. Whether you go close to the house or not, you are captured. Then you move away, again, lights will go off. They don't want to waste their energies. Now, your mind has to become like that, with sensors, that suddenly the sensors will start working when your mind gets distracted. So there are certain dogs. Dogs are like stray thoughts, like stray dogs, come into your compound. You're meditating. The moment you're meditating, they advise the switch on these lamps, automated. You should train your mind in such a way that it tells you, okay, now you have 5 thoughts coming into you. You are meditating. A simple tricks of Vipassana. You just have to say, now I'm meditating. I'm this part, I'm meditating on the body and my breath, on my emotions. Okay, now I see there are 2 thoughts coming. Oh, I see, really, I'm thinking about office. The file has come into my mind. Yes, I see the file, and I see this meeting, and I see the boardroom. You keep telling it yourself, and that happens in a very, it's absolutely nothing is audible. It's all happening within. The moment you become aware, these files and boardrooms and arguments and whatever had entered your mind, they run away. You just have to be aware. Don't fight them. The moment you try to fight with them, they will fight with you. Because the moment you fight with them, they know you are one of their equals. So they'll challenge you. If you look into the eyes of an animal, especially monkeys, they'll attack you. No, ignore the monkey. Don't look at the eyes. They don't do anything. They think you are too big because you're ignoring them. Similarly, just take note of all the thoughts that are entering when you're meditating. That is the technique. Now come here. What we had mentioned in the previous one, that Punaruthanam, how do you sort of rise again in your practice? That he says, don't try to control your mind. Vishayeshu cha sarveshu indriyartheshu cha sthitam yatra yatra nirupyeta na shivam vidyate kuchit. Wherever your mind goes, you see that as Paramashiva. Because there is no state, no reality, no process where you can see it exists without that foundation called Shiva Tattva. There is no avastha which is not associated with Shiva, because this is a game, is an outward manifestation of the inner secret of Shiva Sattva and Shakti. So wherever you go, you see that Tattva, then absolutely you are not affected by it. You will be able to reunite yourself. You go to the highest level. What happens to you? He mentions. Itam chidrupa swatma vimarsha avesa prakarshataha. Big word. Itam, like this. Chidrupa, that pure Shiva consciousness, which is essentially Chidrupa. What is the nature of that? It's pure consciousness. Chidrupa Swatva Vimarsha. And what kind of Chidrupa? You have Aham Shivoham, Aham Shivosmi. I myself is Param Brahma. I am that pure consciousness. This is my essential nature. That Swatma Vimarsha, self awareness, that awareness of the self and its essential nature is Suddha Buddha Mukta Swabhava. Then what happens? Vimarsha Prakarshataha. When you perfect it, yogi, that sadhaka, Parama Shivena Avinna Rupatam, then he slowly attains equal appearance in the sense his human nature almost becomes Shiva nature. It's fully divinized. He may be in a human body, but his consciousness gets fully divinized. Then what happens? Prapnoti iti nirdishati shivatulya jayate. That state of being comparable with that pure, perfect Shiva awareness, Shiva consciousness, that is what is hinted. The person who thus reunites with the divine, he becomes like the divine. He becomes almost comparable because our essential nature is essentially Shiva Tattva, nothing else. Chidananda Rupa, Turyeka Chidananda Rupa, Chit Ananda Rupa, that consciousness, truth consciousness and bliss, that Rupa, which is the Swarupa, and that is that Turyavastha, the fourth state, Turyeka Ghana, Chamatkar, and that is wonderful. You remember the first chapter when you were doing that the person who is doing the Sambhavapaya, which is Abheda Atmaka meditation on Paramashiva, he experiences limitless wonders because he's reconnecting with the pure self. This pure state is not a very dull state, it's dynamic, it is pulsating, it is luminous. And he experiences many magical spells when he is uniting with this. And, he sort of, as they say there, so he experiences goosebumps, so to say, not in a physical sense. He feels very excited. He's in a very blissful state by meditating on that Shiva Tattva. Parama Shivena Avinna Rupatam Prapnoti iti nirdisati Shivatulya Jayate Chidananda Rupa Turyeka Ghana Chamatkara Subhavasya Paunah Punyena Yoga Vyasa Baladeva. Pauna Punyena. He again and again practices this. He repeats this spell, because this Anabhopaya is doing Shirya sadhana. So again and again he experiences it, and he is able to quickly enter into that state of non-difference with the divine self. Turyatita pade yogi pratishtita bhavati. Now from that Atma Vyapti or Samana stage, this fellow jumps to the Unamana stage, ascends, complete ascent, leaving behind everything. Because from Samana stage, you may slide back. Up to Samana stage, it's a very human thing. Beyond that, Atma Vyapti, you will have non-different Shiva Vyapti, universal consciousness. Sacha Sakshat Sarvaloka Loka Antaratmana. Sarvaloka Antaratma, who is he? Paramashiva. He pervades, he inhabits in all of us. By that self, Chinmaya Swacha Swachanda. So Chinmaya. Chinmaya means Chaitanyamaya. Chitmaya, Chinmaya. Swacha and Swachanda. Perfectly transparent, perfectly free and autonomous, sovereign. Swachanda, Satchidananda Salina. These are all attributions to Lord Shiva, the Paramashiva Tattva. And by that Shiva Tattva, Satchidananda Salina, Satchid Ananda Swarupena, Shivena, by him, with the help of that, what he does, Bhagavata, he's Parameshwara, Paramashivena, Tulya Sanjayate, he almost becomes like him. One example in the lower levels of our understanding would be when you put a small piece of magnet in a very powerful magnetic field, it behaves like a magnet after some time. And if you keep it for a long time, maybe permanently it will behave like a magnet. These things we know. Similarly, this fellow gets transformed through constant meditation on that Shiva Tattva. His nature, the human aspects wear off, and he becomes Shiva himself. Paramashivena tulya sanjayate satu kevalam kaya kala vigalana paryantam. That's sarira kala. This is a frame. This is for our sadhana. This is not for upabhoga. This is for sadhana. This is like an elevator. This is like an elevator. We can use this body as an elevator to ascend to a higher plane of consciousness. Or we can go down the elevator to the animalistic aspects of our consciousness. So he's saying Kaya Kala Vigalana Paryantam Shiva Sadrusha Tishtati. He's almost like Shiva. He continues to exist. Arthat, what means? Tena Sukhen Mukhenduvata. When you say that somebody's face is like the moon, Shija Chandramukhi, obviously it's not exactly like a moon. Yeah, it has semblance of being luminous and a beautiful face. So we call it, she's like a moon. So Chandrenduvata, Mukhenduvata, Isat Nyunataya. It's a little deficient compared to the Paravashiva Tattva because it has a human frame. Samana Dharmata Dharyate. However, it's almost like him, right? It's like a human clone of the Paramashiva Tattva. Anantaram Kaya Kalayaha Bigalani, and finally, after some time, the body will fall because it's not permanent, it dies. Vigalane sati sakshat Paramashiva eva aso bhavati. Then he becomes Paramashiva. That means the physical frame goes. That little limitation associated with the body-mind complex, when the body falls, he is fully liberated. Then he's mentioning, therefore, what is the sadhana advice for us? Tasma nityam asandigdham. All the time, without any doubt. Have firm faith. You have to have Shraddha. Nityam, that means not for a week, not for a year, but all the time. Asandigdham, without any doubt. Buddhva yogam gurur mukhat. You understand this whole Anavupaya, understand the Trikadarshana from the Guru, where we are now reading the Siva Sutra book. The Shastra itself is our Guru. Abhikalpena bhavena bhavet tanmayatvataha. Abhikalpena, without any vikalpa parampara, without any distraction, without indulging in thoughts and ideas. You steadfastly meditate and contemplate on the essential nature of the self, which is Shiva Tattva. Tanmayatvataha. Tavat tat samatam yati. Yavat tat samatam jati. How long should I meditate like this? Until you become Shiva himself. You get that equality, that comparability. Bhagavan Bhairava Vravita. This is the advice of Bhagavan Bhairav. We're saying the sadhaka should meditate like this till he very much becomes like me. Ityadina Kalika Krame Pratipaditam Bhavati. This is a book called Kalika Krama, from where this particular, this Kali Krama is also one Shastra Parampara, which is part of the Trikadarshana. And these are associated texts which are being cross-referred to by different commentators. Now let's go to the Shiva Sutra Vimarshini, and then we'll go to the next sutra. Itham asadita prakarsho yogi. When this person, we mentioned, matrasu swapratya sandhana nastasya punaruthanam. We already have discussed how a person reaches that Shiva Vyapti. When you reach there, what happens? Turya parishilana prakarshat. Same as what the last, Krishnananda Sagara mentioned, is repeating that. Turya parishilam prakarshat. You do that parishilana, meditating and establishing yourself in that fourth state. Prapta turyatita padaha. Kathopanishad tad Vishnuho paramam padam. You go and reach there. That is Brahmagyana. He is similarly saying turyatita padam. Padaha paripurna swachha swachanda chidananda ghanena shivena bhagavata tulyaha dihakalayaha avigalanat tatsamo jayate tadvigalanena sakhya siva eva aso ityartha tathacha sikalika krame. Whatever we read is kind of a repetition of that which is mentioned here. So there are two takeaways for us. One is that if you lose your concentration, you don't fight with yourself, you don't pull your own legs, you don't kick yourself, you play with yourself, watch your consciousness, whatever is getting diverted, remember Lord Shiva there. It's an interesting game which we can play with ourselves. Many naive people realize God because they take the Shastra advice or Guru's advice very seriously. We are aware of that story. I mean, this is a story which is often repeated among all these Veda parties and Upanishad parties in all ashrams around Ganges as to how there was one great guru and he was talking about Upanishad or Bhagavatam, and he said that if you the person who all the time meditates on me, I all the time protect him and he can achieve whatever he wants. And the next day, Ganges was flooding, right? Ganges was in spate, and there was this milk woman who had to bring milk to this side. And the Guruji saw that she's there with milk. He said, "How did you come?" "And I walked." I said, "How did you walk? The river is in spate. Boats have stopped. How did you come?" She said, "Yeah, there was no boat, so I just walked to the side, chanting Lord Krishna's name. That's what you had advised yesterday." I said, "What? Please repeat." He said, "No, no, I'm not lying to you. That's what exactly I did." And the Guruji fainted, saying, "This lady has Bhagwan Krishna's darshana. What about my life? I taught Bhagavatam and Vedanta throughout my life. No chance of any Shiva darshanam." A lot of these stories are there in our Bhakti Parampara. They glorify dedication to the Lord is the only instrument, only means of self-transformation. But here we are talking about Jnana Ajwala Bhakti, that when constantly a person is doing that sort of meditation, remember, Anavopaya is essentially Upasana with some Jnana. He is trying to, sort of breach the limitations and go to the other side, Saktopaya and also Sambhavopaya, with serious meditation. Shiva Tulya Jayati is mentioning. Essentially, this is going to happen in Sambhavopaya. When Anavopaya is saying, through serious, deep meditation and contemplation on that Shiva Tattva is not different from you. You are part of that. But remember, this is not Vichara. He is not capable enough. He's a preliminary sadhaka. And yet, through very deep dedication, he breaks the glass ceiling and reaches the top. Shiva Tulya Jayate. And you can say that this is perhaps for stuti, kind of encouragement, motivating the sadhaka. Let it be, not a problem. But there is an element of truth in this because we have a lot of evidences that not necessarily the ones who are very adept in analysis and stuff like that are the ones who go to the top. Essentially, whichever way, the best engineer may not be able to fix a motorbike or a car which is not functioning. A good mechanic can. It's a little like that. It's like how deeply you invest your attention and your devotion and how you, take a plunge into it. And as we do that, the changes start happening. And the powerful word in Kashmiri Saivism is anugraha. You cannot, surmount all the limitations on your own. You need that anugraha. And Lord Shiva, among his Panchakrityas, anugraha is one. So, Srishti, Sthiti, Laya, Tirobhava, and Anugraha. He is the one who deludes you, and he is the one who rescues you out of it through Anugraha. So, you get that Anugraha, and you become Shivatulya Jayate, he mentions. Okay? And if you look at the Varadaraja, is there any? Turiya Vyasa Prakarshena, he's saying Abhyasa. You do that Turiya Vasta Prapti, turn that into Abhyasa, keep repeating it. Abhyasa Prakarshena, Turiya Titatmakam Padam. He gets that fifth stage. Sampraptaha Sadhaka Shakshat. And ultimately, when you get that, Sarva Loko Taratmana. And this is the Anugraha part. With the blessings and the grace, by dint of that meditation, this fellow ascends to that ultimate stage. Shivena Chinmaya Swachha Ananda Salina Tulya Bigalitanad Deha Kalayaha Galane Shivaha. So he is comparable to Shiva. So far, the body mind complex is retained. When this wears off, falls, then he becomes Shiva himself. Okay, that is about the 25 Sutra. It's not so difficult. We'll go to the next one because we can go on discussing it. Now, what happens to the guy who becomes like Paramashiva? What is his sadhana? As you look at yourself, though, I mean, all of us have been brought up in different traditions. There's somebody who sort of has been brought up in a very ritualistic tradition. He knows about pujas and stuff like that. He's meticulous in doing it, but maybe he didn't have that acculturation process as a child. So he is more comfortable about some jnana sadhana or some upasana, some meditation, right? So depending on the adhikaras, adhikara in our tradition means yogyata. What is the eligibility? You may have read a few books and you have a lot of fanciful imaginations about our own spirituality, but we haven't done basic upasanas. We can sit with books and stuff like that, but it will not take us anywhere. So we have to do our upasanas, we have to do our karma yogas. Kritopasti, akrutopasti. The one who has already done upasana, he has done his karma, his antakarana is clearer. So when he sits and studies, he's very sharp and very clear. It's like in the West, they encourage people who have worked for a little time before they join a PhD course and they do a master's course. Why? They value the time they have as a student. The guys in India who are sort of funded by their parents, invariably, they go join a master's and go and watch cricket matches or play and waste their time because they do not know the value of time and money. It's coming free. But for a student abroad, because he has to raise his money, and then out of 8 hours, 10 hours of work that he was doing earlier, he saves some money and then he goes to study. Each moment he wants to make use of. So he almost takes his studies as if that's a job. He's ready to work for 10 hours, 15 hours. And a lot of students here would say, no, 10 hours every day for how many years? 5 years? Are you joking? I didn't study like that for my 10th or 12th examination. That's what it requires to be an expert in any domain. So now you'd ask me the question, the person who becomes Siva Tulya Jayate, what sort of practice he would do? You know, the joke is he would not do any practice. He has done all the practice. He will remain in his Sahaja Bhava. That itself is his brata. That is the greatest upasana he's doing because he's a Vidhyatma. Sarva Bhuta Hite Rataha. In Bhagavad Gita, these words we have done. And he has Saranagati Bhava. He is doing Sampurna Phalatyaga. And he has complete Ishwararpana Buddhi. So that fellow, whatever he's doing becomes a prayer. He doesn't have to do any prayer. He doesn't have to, that doesn't mean we will not take our time. But for that person who is fully established there, you know about that famous story about Vyadha Gita, about which Swami Vivekananda mentioned and again and again. So there was this Brahmin lady, and there was this one young brahmachari sitting in a jungle and doing yoga sadhana. And after a few years, his energy levels went very high up. And one fine morning, he opened his eyes. When he opened his eyes, there were two birds sitting and talking to each other. Maybe they were floating or mating or whatever. They fell dead. They turned into ash. And this fellow felt very proud. My yoga shakti has become so intense that the moment I opened my eyes, the fire of my gauge burnt these two sweet birds to ash. He said, my sadhana is over. Now I will do, I'll just do some kind of tirtha. So he gets into the society, he wants to do padayatra. And in that process, he comes, this is quoted in Shukraniti, so he comes and sits in front of the house of a Brahmin lady who was cooking something. She said, Bhavati Bhikshan Dehi. He says, there is no male member. Oh, mother, give me some food. It's pretty hot. He's standing outside. And the lady says, please wait. And she's doing something. Half an hour is gone, 1 hour gone. He's very angry because, as per the rules, these brahmacharis can only beg in 3 houses or 7 houses. If they don't get anything, they have to stay hungry. She finally comes out after 1.5 hours and he says, please come inside. She comes with a bucket of cold water. She washes his feet, gives him a bucket of water to take a bath, takes him inside, gives him a chair, then wants to serve food. But this guy is a little adamant and says, do you know actually whom you made to wait for so long. Do you know who am I? The lady smiled. She was a young lady and she smiled. He said, my son, I know you are a brahmachari and you have a lot of yogic powers, but I am not those two little birds in the jungle. Then this guy panicked. I said, my God, this lady knows who am I. She knows the whole story. He said, Mother, how did you know this story? I'll say, she said, let me tell you this. I have a husband who came from the field. She was out for work and he was tired, you know, and I'm the landlady. I'm maintaining this household. When he came back, my job was to give him water, to take a bath, and serve him food. And then I'm also cooking for you because I cannot serve the leftover. So I had to quickly at the same time manage my time and cook for you, and I'm serving you food. But I have to do my duty towards him. So this is the power of karma yoga, he mentions. This is the power of karma yoga. And then he says, so with that, you know about what happened to me and my yogic sadhana and all that? She said, why not? Then this young boy, this brahmachari, became very curious. He said, I want to know more. Then she tells him, he goes to a butcher in the next village. He's my guru. She's a Brahmin lady. He's a butcher. He says, you go to that butcher and take advice. And this brahmachari goes to him. And he waits for him because he's actually selling meat. He's in a very bad state, the smell of meat. Can you imagine how difficult it is to bear the stench of meat for a brahmachari who is a pure vegetarian? He stays at a distance. When he's done with it, he washes his hands and he says, please wait, I'm coming. Then he takes a bath and comes. He says, yes, I know you have been sent by some Brahmin woman and you are a monk, you are meditating, you are a young monk, and two birds died because you opened your eyes. You have a lot of yogic powers. He says, you know about it? He said, yes. Why are you selling meat? He said, my prarabdha. Because I had committed a few errors as a result of which I have to go through this experience. But then I'm established in the truth all the time. And my whole life is, in fact, a prayer to the Lord. Then the conversation which follows between them is kind of captured in a poetic form, and that is called the Vyadha Gita. And apparently, Swami Vivekananda was very deeply impressed with the story and the text. Now we are dealing with something similar, but not a person who is still at a very preliminary stage of karma yoga, but somebody who has already realized that Shiva Tattva. What kind of upasana would he do? That is the question. The answer is nothing. He, by being there, is doing sadhana. That is the answer. Sarira Vrittir Vratam. What is the vrata he does? Ekadashi Vrata, Navaratra Vrata, Sarira Vritti, just holding that body itself is the biggest prayer that he is practicing. Let's look at the commentaries, it's very beautiful. Prokta Drisha Shivatulyasya Yoginaha. When you have this guy who is comparable with Paramashiva himself in terms of his yogic powers and his equanimity, Shiva Aham Bhavena Vartamanasya. What kind of experience he is having? Shivoham. My essential nature is that of Paramashiva. He is no way aware of himself that this is my house, this is my wife, this is my children, this is my job, this is my money. No, he is Jivan Mukta. Shivaham Bhavena Vartamanasya, of that kind of a yoginaha, Sarire Vrittihi Vartanam Yat, his continuation in his physical seats, this Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, very continuation, Tadeva Vratam. That itself is the greatest Purashana he is doing. Greatest Vrata Anusthana he is doing. Observation of fast? No. Meditation? No. Japa? No. That very state is his sadhana. Ultimate thing. Vratam niyamena anushteyam asya na punah tasya. He doesn't have to do anything. Tasya deha sthiti vyatiriktam vratam upayuktam. For him, other than just being alive, there is any anushtheya vrata which is advised by our school of thought. That is what is advised by the Siva Sutrakar. Bhatta Kalata, one of the greatest commentators, is saying this. So let's look at the Evamapi cha yena idam tadhi bhogatah. Yena evam tadhi bhogatah. You see, whatever prarabdha karma you have, as I told you, there are three kinds of karma. You have sanchita karma, you have agami karma, and you have prarabdha karma. Sanchita karma is destroyed with atma jnana, right? Agami karma would not affect you because you become atma jnani, then there is no ahankara. If there is no ahankara, there is no karta bhava, so there is no karma. Karma is possible, papa punya is possible only if there is a karta. The karta will be there if there is karta bhava. So how to avoid papa punya is to actually renounce karta bhava. That is what Bhagavad Gita has taught us. You surrender your karta bhava to me and you live your life for me. Then no karma for you. So he's saying, because the aslesha vinaso, there is vinasa of sanchita karma and aslesha, non-stickiness of any agami karma, kriyamana karma. Why? Because no agency is there, you don't have any kartri bhava. What about prarabdha karma? He says, no, nothing can be done about it. You have to suffer it. You have to experience it. You have done a lot of punyas, so you are Atmajnani, but there are a few years left for you to be a minister, to be a king, to be a big entrepreneur. You have to pass those days because you have done the punya. I haven't asked you to do it. You have had some punya or you have had some papa, so you have to have some experience as a reward or as a punishment for the good and bad karmas which you have committed during your previous lives or during this life. So he's saying, Tad Vyatiriktam Dehasthiti Vyatiriktam Vratam na Upayuktam. There is nothing else which is advised for him. Ebamapi cha yena edam tadhi bhogatah ityadi yukta ritya upanata bhoga. You don't want it, but that is falling in front of you. Yadecha lava santushtaha. Whatever comes, he is happy. So he's saying upanata bhoga ativahana matra prayojanat. And he has to experience it. Whatever falls in front of me, he has to pass through it. Dehasthitihi asya na ati kramaniya ityaha. So that dehasthiti, he cannot overcome it. He has a body. And that itself is his brata because he is basically burning down whatever remaining prarabdha is there. He is extinguishing it. Prokta drisha Siva tulyasya yoginaha. That kind of person who has that Shiva drishti, by him, Shiva tulyasya, who is comparable to Shiva yoginaha, what kind of meditation he is doing? Siva aham bhavena vartamanasya, who is present here, who is existing as Shivoham. Sarira vritti vartanam yat tadeva vratam. That is what Bhatta Kalata says, he is repeating it. That sarira vartanam, because you see, this is Deha Kala. And if he's there, he will definitely meditate on Lord Shiva. If there is a bright student, he doesn't have a job. Okay, fine. He's retired, fine. But he would look for good books to read. That is his swabhava. He has to read something. Similarly, a sportsman, he may not be playing now. He'll watch the sports. He'll stay connected. That is his nature. So this guy who is Shiva Tulya, even if he doesn't do any puja, where is his mind? In Shiva. So he's saying, Tadeva Vratam, Swaswarupa Vimarshatmaka Nityodita Parapuja Tatparasya Niyamena Anushtayam Asya. What kind of is contemplating Swaswabhava Vimarsha? What is your essential nature? What is the Swabhava? Shiva Rupa. Swaswabhava Vimarshatmaka. You are meditating that self-awareness where you are meditating on the self as Shiva. Nityodita Parapuja Tatparasya. And then that is your puja. You're not doing bell ringing and all that. You're constantly aware of that Shiva Tattva. Iska bhakti nahi hai, he's a Nastik. No, he's not a Nastik. He's not an atheist. He's very much dedicated to Lord Shiva. But he is not coming and joining us in Sankirtanam. He's a Vaishnava. He wants some dancing and this and that. And this guy is not joining. He's a Saiva Darshana follower. So sitting and meditating, or he's a Vedantist. And these guys are dancing. with cymbals and drums and all that. What do they think? Yeah, admi nastik hai. But he's not a nastika. He's all the time, in fact, doing puja, constantly doing puja, and his puja is meditation on that Paramatatva. Tatparasya niyamena anushteyam asya tadahi swachhande. Swachhanda tantra mein what is written? Now, it's a beautiful example is given here. Swapradipte yatha banno shikha drishyeta chambare. Now, you light a lamp. The fire moves up and you can see it lights up the sky, right? You set fire to some wood or whatever, but it goes to the top, isn't it? Similarly, deha prana stitotpatyatma, deha prana stitopyatma, deha prana stitopi atma, tad tad vat liyate tatpade. We have the body, we have a mind, you have a human friend. Even then, that sadhaka who has become comparable with Shiva, he has this biological frame in which that consciousness is operating. However, that consciousness, like the fire reaches the sky, his consciousness liyate tatpade Shivapade. All thoughts that you have, it will go towards market, stock market, job, this, that, everywhere the mind goes. For this guy, whatever you say, his mind goes to Paramashiva. Like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I was mentioning, he sees a drum and he sees that black spot and he remembers Lord Jagannath's eyes. Thakur goes to Alipur Zoo, looks at a lion, faints. He sees Ma Durga. Because that very nature of the consciousness that it goes to that Mahabhava, it constantly reconnects itself. That is its essential nature. And then if we practice, that is the advice to us. The practice is that if you constantly take the holy name, you do japa, tat chintanam, tat kathanam, anunyam, tat prabodhanam, that is what Shastra says. You do a bit of satsang, have that practice, then even in your dream after some time, there would be some situations where you would be chanting. You would see yourself chanting in your dream if you practice it for some time. And you'd be also discussing this Vedanta and Shaiva Darshan even in your dream. That also would happen. It all depends because that is what you're saying. You're sprinkling Shiva consciousness in your Jagrata Avastha and then unconsciously you're sprinkling it in your Swapna Avastha and also Susupti Avastha. That is how the complete holistic transformation takes place. So he's saying Tad liyeta tatpade ityuktya. This is taken from Swachhanda Tantra in section 4, 398. Deha pranadi avastitasya eva. Deha pranadi avastitasya. That is the state of Atma Vyakti. You have that individual consciousness. Siva Samavishtatvam Uktam. So he is verily established, enshrined in that Shiva consciousness. So you have Atma Vyakti transcending, transforming itself, qualitatively changing to Shiva Vyakti. That human consciousness, when it's perfected, it becomes divine consciousness. First, it starts meditating on the Shiva consciousness, starts meditating on the divine consciousness. All the time thinks, I am a human being, I have this human consciousness, how this consciousness can become divine consciousness. Constantly thinks about the divine. And in the process, the human adjective is replaced with divine, and his consciousness is consciousness, but it becomes divine consciousness. Shiva Samavishtatvam Uktam Na Punah Tasya Deha Sthiti Vyatiriktam Vratam Upayuktam. For that sort of a guy, being in the body is enough for him, because if he's in the body, he's thinking about Lord Shiva. He's in the body, he's in the Shiva Bhava. What else he needs to do? He's already in that penultimate stage. Then there is a beautiful, Trikasara. There is another book from where there's a beautiful couplet which is quoted here. Dehothitavir mudravir yah sada mudrito buddha. You remember you had that khechari mudra we had discussed. What is that khechari mudra? Khe charatiti khechari, kha is akasha. That is mahashunya. That is that Shiva tattva. Khechari mudra is not twisting your tongue and taking it to the soft palate and seeing that drops of nectar coming. That is what we study in yoga. You go to any yoga expert, he'll tell you how to practice khechari mudra. And if you do it, there's a lot of benefits, like you will not feel heat and cold. A lot of people do it to survive in conditions of snowfall and stuff like that, nothing happens. They survive without much clothes. They have these yogic techniques. But this Trikadarshana, the Saiva Sutra is making fun of that sort of perfection. Why? He's saying the one Dehastita, Dehottita Vir, Mudravir, Yah Sada Mudrito Buddha. So with this mudras and all, one is outward mudra, the real asana is inward asana, as we studied in Apurukshanavati. So asana means that inward meditative pose. That is the real asana. Outward asana is for practicing. It's like a manipulation of your biochemical mechanism in order to produce some consciousness. Of course, that will be produced. But the true thing is like somebody takes some intoxicant to feel as if he's Shiva. That doesn't last too long. So he's saying the person mudrito buddha, when a person is in that pose of Shiva consciousness, Satu Mudradhara is the real Mudradhara. He knows how to stay in the real yogic pose, because the real yogic pose is not a external physical posture, but it's a state and an orientation of one's consciousness. Shesavai Asti Dharaka. What are others who are doing asana pranayam and they are holding themselves and taking pictures and posting on Instagram and advertising for some, you have a retreat for this particular yoga. What are they? Asti Dharakaha. They are essentially carrying these bones in different shapes, and they're taking pictures of that skeleton with flesh and other things. They're taking a picture and posting it on their social media account in order to draw attention and appreciation. They are carrier of bones. They don't know anything about yogic mudra. Yogic mudra is known to the guy who is established in the Shiva consciousness, is able to hold that yogic posture at the level of inner consciousness, not the one who is doing these external games. Okay, and then finally he's saying, Iti Sri Kula Panchasikayam api. There is another book called Kula Panchasika. There he also mentions. This is again a very interesting thing. And you would like this couplet. Abhyakta linginam društva sambhasante marichayah. Marichi is rays of light, but Marichi is also the Manasa Santana of Brahmaji. And then this Marichi got married to Kandarpa Kanya Kala. Some people say he got married to Sambhudi, and he had two sons. It's called Paunamasha, the other one is Kashyapa. And then Kashyapa and had two wives, Diti and Aditi, and you have the Daityas and Adityas. So these are all somebody's who are very close to the Swayambhu Brahma, the first appearance, the creative selves. Abhyakta linginam društva sambhasante marichayah. The marichis talk to them, wish them, hello, how are you? At whom? Abhyakta linginam. What is linga? You have this pound tripundu. You have these Vaishnavas wearing these marks. So these people who wear a lot of spiritual marks, to them, these occult powers, these divinities, don't say hello. They say hello to whom? Abhyaktilinginam, who is doing his practice internally. He's not showing off. Anybody who shows off, the divinities go away. The powers who could give you some grace, they go away. Linginam nopasarpanti. They don't even go closer to the ones who have these lingas. Lingas is chinna. Linginam nopasarpanti. Atigupta tarayataha. These particular thing, their occult powers, they are very secretive. All these powers, all these truths are very secretive. Again and again in our parampara, they say, don't give it to somebody who doesn't deserve to know it. He'll make fun of you. First, he will make fun of you. This will affect your sadhana, and you'll lose importance and absolutely not be able to meditate properly. Therefore, he's saying iti. So that is how Kshemaraja Siva Sutra Vimarshini comes to an end, and our time ends, but not a problem. We are meeting again tomorrow. Yeah, little of these, the final, the final commentator, Acharya Krishnananda Sagara's commentary is a little left. We will revisit it tomorrow, and we'll move forward in the next two sutras tomorrow. Any questions, even though we've just touched the timeline, or we will do the Santi mantras? Anyone has any questions? Okay, so let's do the Santi mantras. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ओम तत्सत्। Okay, so have a good day. We'll meet again tomorrow.
Good, sir.